Boundaries are essential for having a healthy relationship, but if you've had a relationship with a narcissist, it's possible that you need to strengthen your boundaries. Maybe you don't even know what boundaries are, or you know you have weak boundaries. If that's you, then you can learn how to have boundaries. And this video is all about boundaries and how to implement them, so you can have a healthy relationship with yourself and with others. Hello and welcome back to the Revelation Station, where we talk and take action on healing from narcissistic abuse. This video is all about boundaries, and I'm so excited because this topic is so important when healing from narcissistic abuse. We're going to cover signs that you might lack boundaries, what boundaries even are, because if you've experienced narcissistic abuse, you might not even know what they are. How do we end up without boundaries, and what are the effects on us of having weak boundaries or no boundaries? Why do we need boundaries? And I'm also going to walk you through a powerful 4-step process that you can start implementing right now so that you can have boundaries in your life. Before we get into the video, I just want to invite you to subscribe to the channel if you are interested in personal development and healing from narcissistic abuse. I've got many videos in store for you, but if you have any video requests, leave a comment below and you might just find that your request is made into a video. But for now, let's get into boundaries. So how do you even know if you lack boundaries? If you lack boundaries, you might find that you feel powerless to how people treat you. You might struggle to say no to people, and you might find yourself going along with things, situations that you just don't want to. There might be an imbalance in your relationship with other people where you're giving too much in the relationship and it's not equal. You might struggle to draw the line with how much personal information you share with other people. And if that is you, I'm going to be sharing a very powerful technique that you can start using to stop this. You also might not even realize that your preferences matter. And you might feel like other people take advantage of you and be really concerned with what other people expect of you, how they react to you, and what they think about you. So what is a boundary? I'm going to give the example in terms of a country. So if you think of a country, there's a clearly defined area, its landmass. And then within that country, there's clearly defined rules, laws, and regulations that apply to everyone in that country. But then there's also not so clearly defined social norms, culture, language, and customs that operate within that country. And if you drill down further, there's also the individual preferences of the people that live there. So in this sense, a boundary is where one country ends and another begins, and there's usually a very clear sign, and the rules and regulations, even down to the social norms, are usually communicated so that everyone understands them. A boundary between humans is also where you end and another person begins. That's the physical boundary. But then we also have rules of how we want to be treated, even down to the tiniest individual preference. So in a sense, you could think of boundaries as the rules of you, and these can change over time. These govern the way we interact, and they can be firm, so like the law, very strict boundaries on things like physical and verbal abuse, or they could be fluid and flexible, things that might change depending on the context, the situation, or the person you're with, or just your preferences. So how do we lose our boundaries or end up without them at all? In terms of narcissistic abuse, a narcissist is someone who doesn't see or hear you as an individual person separate to them. And so they don't see you as having boundaries. And if we're around that for long enough, we can start to think of ourselves as not having boundaries. We need to compromise in order to get on in a relationship, but we can compromise too much and we can try and change and morph ourselves to fit their reality. But the thing is, that's their reality, it's not our reality. We can also learn how not to have boundaries in childhood. The very nature of a parent-child relationship is that the parent holds most, if not all, of the power in the relationship. And if a parent continues to invade a child's boundaries, or just not teach them that boundaries exist, or invalidate their thoughts and feelings, then they might learn that what they think and feel doesn't matter. We just simply might not have ever been taught boundaries. And if we learn this, if we learn to not speak up for ourselves in some areas of our life, then these are the gaps in our boundary wall, if you will, that can then allow someone like a narcissist who doesn't even see you as having boundaries to then break through that wall because it's just not strong enough. So what are the effects of having no boundaries or weak boundaries? Like, you're probably aware of some of the effects, but I'll say it this way. Each time we accept someone else's reality without considering our own or even voicing our own first, we lose a little part of ourselves. We give a little part of ourselves away. And we also send ourselves the message that I don't matter. This builds up over time. On top of this, we also have the frustration and the anger at ourselves and at others for going along with this journey. We can sometimes not even realise that we've been taken advantage of, and so there's that frustration. Have you ever felt this, where you've maybe given too much in a situation and then it's only after the fact that you realise, why did I do that? Like, I've just given too much away. So this can all result in us being really unsure of who we even are, whether we have any rights, and we don't know what we want. We don't know how we want to be treated or how we should be treated, and we can even forget that we have a right or a say in any of this. And really, this can lead us to being the perfect prey to someone like a narcissist who doesn't see other people as having boundaries. So why do we need boundaries? I came across a quote which says, "Givers need to set limits because takers rarely do," by Rachel Walchin. And I think this really sums things up. So we need to stop giving ourselves away, because if we say, no, meet me halfway instead, then basically we're telling others how to treat us so we can hold ourselves in our own power. And you might think, well, does it even make a difference to a narcissist whether you have boundaries or not? It does, because a narcissist wants to take the path of least resistance. So if someone has boundaries, they'll be less likely to try and cross them. And people have a sense for boundaries. Even as children, we would know which parent to ask if we wanted something. Say you wanted an ice cream, you'd probably know who would be more likely to say yes. And this is as children we know this. So narcissists 100% know this. They have a sense for who has weak boundaries and what they can get away with without anyone kicking up a fuss. By having boundaries, we make it harder for the narcissist to get what they want. And then even if they try, you have that boundary there, which is a protection for you. So let's get into how to set a boundary. I'm going to walk you through this 4-step process. So let's get into it. Number 1, you have to know yourself in order to set a boundary. You need to know and get in touch with what your likes and dislikes are and what you will and won't accept. What are the rules and preferences that make you you? In order to do this, I want you to think of your past and the ways that people treated you, and in particular, anything that you didn't like, things that you think that you don't want to accept in the future. Make a list of those things. Think about how you felt in that situation, and also think about the effects that accepting that behavior or not speaking up has had on you. Also think about your future and imagine if you continued to accept whatever it is, how would that affect you going into the future? These things are really going to help you to strengthen the motivation to have this boundary in the first place. So once you've got your list of things that you like and dislike and won't accept, you can come up with some laws, some strict rules for what you will and won't accept. And you can also come up with some preferences. So for example, one of the first laws or boundaries I decided I was going to have was that I would not accept verbal abuse. You don't need to worry about the hows right now. Just think about what you do and don't want in your life. And then you've got your personal preferences. If you had your way 100%, how would things be in the world? One of mine is that I really dislike being interrupted if I'm watching a TV show. So I would really prefer if someone didn't do that or we press pause. And you might have your own likes and preferences around that. So take some time to think about what they are as well. When you have your list of boundaries, have a look at them, and at this point decide, no, that you will not accept these things anymore, and that you're going to create boundaries around them. So next you'll need to find your language. So brainstorm some ways to say no in your own voice, some ways to say what you want. So basically what you're saying is, in the country of me, if you're going to choose to be around me, this is what is and isn't allowed. This is what I expect. And it doesn't have to be bad. It doesn't have to be high conflict. In fact, it's probably better if it's not. If it's just said in, a general conversation. Take the time to indulge in this period of self-discovery where you can look at what you will and won't accept and now discover how you're going to communicate that. Because when you're in the moment, when you want to implement this boundary, it will be so much easier when you already have the words and you've practiced them and you know what it is you're going to say. So some examples of some language that you might want to consider. Say they're quite angry and they're talking to you, and if you don't like that, you could say something like, don't speak to me when you're so angry and worked up. Come back to me when you've calmed down and then we'll have this conversation. I use that one sometimes. You could also say, I don't like it when, and then let the person know what you don't like, and then give them your preference, what you would prefer. I would prefer it if you, whatever it is. So, I don't like it when you raise your voice. I would prefer it if you didn't speak to me like that, if you had a calm voice when you spoke to me. And if they don't like that, give them some consequences. Let them know what they will be if they continue. So you can say, if you continue, I will leave the room, for example. With a narcissist, I think it's best to avoid actually talking about your feelings because they can sometimes play on our feelings. But with a regular, reasonable person, it's quite fine to put in your feelings, like when you do this, I don't know, when you don't answer the phone, I feel ignored, or whatever it is. I feel sad. I would prefer it if, and let that person know what you need. I need is a really powerful sentence that you can complete with whatever it is that you do need. Let the people around you know what it is that you need, whether it's a hug, some time out, some space, a cup of tea, because otherwise, how will anyone know how they can, have this great relationship with you? We can also find ways that will be easiest for us to maybe excuse ourselves from something like a favor someone wants from us, or maybe like to attend an event. So something like, I'm so grateful that you've invited me. I'm not sure if I'm available. I'll get back to you. Or I know I can't make it, but did you want to do this? And then suggest like an alternate plan. Or just simply say, and I'm really sorry, I can't make it. I hope you have a fantastic time. No itself is a full sentence, so don't worry about just saying the word no. And even saying things like, I can't do this, or I'm sorry, I can't do that. It's perfectly acceptable. And the more that we can become okay with these sentences, so it might take a little bit of practice just to get used to it. You know, you can repeat these things in your head so that when you go to say it to someone, it doesn't feel like foreign and strange to you, and then the person that you're talking to will be more likely to respect and understand where you're coming from as well. If you find it hard to find these words, then you might be interested in a freebie I've created. I've broken down some of the different boundaries that we have, like the internal ones I've spoke about, the language, or even if you get pushback from someone else, and I've put them in a cheat sheet so that you could practice those, so that when you do need to implement a boundary, you've got that language there, or you know what you're going to do, some options for you. So if you're interested in that, I'll leave the link below and you can grab yourself the boundaries cheat sheet. So I said I would let you know if you're one of these people that gives too much information, like personal information, to other people. A great thing that you can do for this is rephrase the question that someone asks you. So say, for example, someone asks, what salary do you get? And you don't want to answer that question. Rephrase that question in your head and ask yourself, what am I comfortable sharing with this person about my salary? And then answer that question instead. I had a job once, and I don't know why, but I got asked this question all the time. And so my response, what I was comfortable sharing with, is that I earn a comfortable living doing this. And that was it. A lot of times, if someone wants a favor or they really want this information from you, they will just continue to push and ask this question again and again. So in that case, be okay with feeling a bit repetitive, like you're just repeating yourself and saying the same response to them, because you're not doing anything different to what they're doing. They're coming at you with the same question, just give them the same response. Step 3, implementing the boundary. Now this is where the resistance can really come up, because it can feel really uncomfortable to set a boundary if you're not used to doing that. Change and growth comes with growing pains, and this is part of the process. So in order to help and support yourself through this, identify what your resistance is. What thoughts and feelings are coming up? What beliefs do you have around setting this boundary? Some feelings you might have could be, feeling guilty or shameful or even scared to assert yourself. You might feel really uncertain about this and fearful. You might feel like you're obligated to meet the expectations of other people. You might have beliefs like, who am I to set a boundary? And maybe this is really selfish of me, or I'm being petty or stubborn. You might have second thoughts and regrets, like it's easier to just not set the boundary and maybe it's just not such a big deal after all. At this point, when you feel this resistance, remind yourself where having no boundaries or a weak boundary in this regard got you, because the effects are not good. And then question these feelings and these beliefs. Are they true? Is it true that you're selfish if you have a boundary? And ask yourself, is this even your voice? Where did this message come from? Is it from your family, from society, from someone you've been spending your time with? And find where this is not true. And then talk back to the emotion and the thoughts in your head, because you need to tell yourself, this is old, this is the old you, this is how you are able to be controlled by other people and guilt tripped because you have those feelings that come up within you. The more you can talk back to those feelings and those beliefs, you take the strength out of them, you lessen the resistance and the power that they have over you. You'll need to practice self-reassurance. Continually tell yourself the benefits in doing this and why you need to do this, and that you are worthy of having these boundaries. And also repeat these beliefs, these new boundaries, internally to yourself so that you get used to them. The more that you get used to your new beliefs and your new boundaries, the easier you will find it to be when you have to actually say them to someone else. And the more comfortable you are when you say your boundaries, the more likely that someone else will accept them. But it doesn't even matter whether someone accepts them or not. What matters is that you accept yourself and you accept that you are worthy of having these boundaries. We're on the last point, number 4, reflect, refine and repeat. So what's next after you've decided what your boundaries are and you've found your language and your response and you've implemented a boundary? You might have chosen to start small. Maybe you implemented a boundary with someone that you're less emotionally invested in because it's easier. Or maybe you did start with a hard and fast rule like no verbal abuse. Whether you started small or large, repeat this process for more boundaries that were on the list that you made in the first section. Things that you won't accept. Also, observe what happens when you don't stick to your boundaries. You might find yourself becoming less confident. So really pay attention to that and keep continuing to work on your boundaries and on yourself. Start to reflect on your day-to-day life. You could do this daily or weekly, where you look back and retrospectively you can think of things that maybe you want to implement as a new boundary. Boundaries can also change over time, so this reflection gives you a chance to also refine any boundaries that you might have. Maybe you want to change your language over something or change the way that you respond. You can start to build up your portfolio of boundaries, if you will. Remember, it's never too late to find and set your boundaries. Your boundaries let everyone know how we should treat you, how should we interact with you, what are your personal preferences. And I'd love to know what some of your personal preferences are. I've shared with you one of mine. If you want some support for creating boundaries, I've created a cheat sheet which goes through some of the internal boundaries I mentioned, some unspoken things that you can do, and also some language suggestions for you, so that when you're in the moment and you need to say no, or someone's asking for your time, your attention, you've got some examples there, and they might just trigger in your mind that you'll have the right words at the right time. So it's really useful to have those kind of things. So if you want to get hold of the cheat sheet, I'll leave the link in the comment below. But until the next video, I wish you all the best on your healing journey. Sending hugs and positivities. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe so that you're notified every time I upload a new weekly video. If you head on over to revelationtherapy.com, I've also created a few free resources for you to help you on your healing journey. There's currently a free workbook and a checklist, and I'm adding to those all the time. So be sure to check those out. I'll leave the link in the description below. And if you have any questions at all, you can find me on most social media channels at Revelation Therapy. For now, sending you so many positivities to help you on your healing journey, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Hello and hello. Oh, this is where it all goes wrong. I came across a quote. Don't put that in, because no one's going to find that cute and endearing except for you. I don't know what a reasonable person. Look at me. Me. You. Nah. We can. If you don't have I'm already going wrong in my video. You cannot put me singing on the internet. No, don't do it. Oh, I struggle. I don't even know what I'm saying. I can't even speak properly. I'm just repeating myself over again. No. clearly in a singing mood. You might also feel like, no. Some more signs that you might lack boundaries might be, no. What other people think about you? Is that a sentence? That wasn't right. Of that country. Just say of that country. So, never say so. So, you might want. So step 4, reflect, refine and repeat, which I'm clearly struggling to do right now.